below, prompting an immediate reaction from the turret on Levi's side. The man watches anxiously to see what will happen next, but the drone flies away and the gun goes still. Another month goes by. Levi does chores in his spare time while Drasa plays the piano. Then one day Drasa sees a lit Christmas tree across the gorge and a holiday message for her. They both build snowmen and name them after each other, as if growing closer that way. They even start playing chess together, calling out their moves to each other in turn. One evening, the pair sets up a real drum battle, using anything they can find as percussion instruments. February arrives. Levi wakes once again from a nightmare and goes out onto the balcony, where the wind is howling. He realizes Drasa is also awake. In the morning, he writes her a note, but she doesn't respond because it's February 14th. She turns on a Bach record and cries, remembering her father. When Levi notices this, he asks what happened. Drasa confides that she's having a difficult day and suddenly wishes he were with her. Levi can't sleep all night, pondering the situation. Then he reads a quote on the wall about the courage of those who've come far and sets to work building a complicated contraption. In the morning, Drasa sees Levi firing a grenade across to her shore with a rope attached, thus setting up a makeshift cable crossing. She runs into the woods, finds the smoldering device, extinguishes it, and ties the rope to a tree. Then she spots a note with an invitation to dinner. Levi tidies himself up and gathers a bouquet of wildflowers, then launches himself off his side of the gorge, zipping along the rope. But he slows before reaching Drasa's edge and must haul himself along by hand, which isn't easy. Drasa invites him to have rabbit pie and he offers her the flowers. He can't help expressing his admiration. Up close, she's even more beautiful. She suggests he wash up in the sauna first, since he's all sweaty from crossing over. Levi laughs, explaining that he miscalculated the tension on the line. Drasa promises to bring him some clothes left behind by previous occupants, but teases him by hanging them a bit too far from the sauna, forcing him to run around naked to get dressed. Later, they have lunch and speculate about where in the world they might be. Both of them were drugged during transport, so they have no idea. Levi can say one thing for sure: they're in the northern hemisphere. He then admits he's a sniper. Immediately, Drasa realizes who he is. His shot in Yemen was the pinnacle of marksmanship. Levi shifts the conversation back to their location. Drasa explains that her father advised her not to learn the whole truth. Levi talks about his childhood in Oregon, where his father taught him how to shoot. That night, they turn on music, and Drasa manages to make Levi dance, noting that he lied about not knowing how. He's very graceful. The two grow closer. Afterward, they talk about everything, eager to learn more about each other. Levi confesses that he wrote a poem dedicated to her, but refuses to recite it. In the morning, Levi says goodbye to Drasa, admitting that her pie was simply divine, then heads back across the gorge. But as he nears his side, a mine goes off, the rope snaps, and he plummets into the gorge. Drasa immediately grabs her weapon and a parachute and jumps after him. But dense fog hides a raging river below, and she plunges into it, quickly sinking. She barely manages to cut herself free from the parachute lines, losing her gear, and struggles to survive by clinging to a fallen tree. Meanwhile, Levi hangs unconscious upside down in one of the gorge's enormous trees, unaware that its branches are coming to life, turning into a strange insect-like creature that's about to devour him. Fortunately, he revives and manages to shoot the monster. Drasa hears the shot and hurries toward the sound, while Levi falls from the tree. Hitting the roots, he realizes they are awakening and trying to pull him underground, apparently intending to feast on him. A gigantic, maw-like opening is about to close over him when Drasa arrives and opens fire, causing the roots to retreat. Levi thanks her for coming to his rescue, but she's sure he would have done the same for her. They wander through the foggy forest, discussing how to get out of there, when suddenly a horse made of tangled roots charges at them. Riding it is a strange, plant-like humanoid. The figure dodges their bullets and attacks Drasa, while Levi fights off the horse. The pair barely manages to defeat these bizarre creatures. Levi speculates that living humans serve as food for these plant monsters. Then Drasa realizes she lost their rope in the river, and now it's unclear how they can climb back up. She suggests following the river, hoping there's an exit somewhere. Levi points out the remnants of a uniform on the fallen rider. It's all post-war attire from the 1940s. These must be the remains of those cavalrymen who vanished. They set off, marveling at the strange, terrifying tangles of trees and shrubs that clearly incorporate human shapes. Before long, they come upon partially demolished structures, apparently damaged by seismic activity. They enter a building that looks like a church and go inside. The pews are still there, and here and there they see human remains on them. Levi detects a familiar odor and deduces these people died from cyanide poisoning. But how could that have happened? Drasa begs him to leave as soon as possible when suddenly huge spiders drop down on them from above. They shoot their way out and sprint for the door just as the mummified corpses on the pews start to move. Drasa fires a grenade launcher at the church wall. It catches fire, and they manage to escape this nightmare. They try to hide, but it's impossible. Monsters are everywhere. Drasa suggests they stick close to the gorge wall, where at least no one can attack from behind. They run there and find an entrance to a more or less intact hangar where they can barricade themselves and get a little rest. Soon they realize this is a base built into the rock of the gorge. They discover an old laboratory full of chemicals and compounds. Searching it, Levi finds a reel of film in a generator that still works, despite all the years. Lights come on, Levi finds a projector, and they watch a film in which a lab worker describes a secret coalition of Eastern and Western nations. Near the end of World War II, while Oppenheimer was creating the nuclear bomb, they were developing a chemical warhead of unprecedented destructive power in this lab. Suddenly, a severe earthquake struck the gorge, destroying the lab. The resulting biochemical contamination fused human DNA with plants, animals, and even insects, turning people into monsters. However, some individuals turned out to be more resilient to the infection. If no mutation shows up within 5 days, a person is immune. The woman on the film shows frightening changes on her body, while Drasa notices a sealed ampule containing some solution. Meanwhile, the scientist continues, saying humanity might be spared only because the gorge is in an impassable region. She begs forgiveness and hopes God will have mercy on them. The film ends. The pair moves on and soon finds a room with modern equipment that clearly didn't exist in the mid-20th century, so the lab must have operated until recently. But why not simply bomb it to eradicate the threat to humanity? Liam starts up a computer and reads the name of a militarized organization, Dark-like. He realizes they weren't working for the military, but for a private company, evidently a very wealthy and powerful one. He knows Dark-like's drones collect hybrid specimens worldwide, so the company must be creating super soldiers and protecting its secrets. Levi then sees a program name, Stray Dog, and recalls Jared's warning. He realizes it's the code name for a thermal bomb that should have destroyed the gorge in the event of a leak, but apparently the earthquake damaged it. Levi admits that if they don't make it out, it was still worth it because he got to meet her. They prepare for the journey ahead when Drasa realizes she forgot her bag by the entrance, where all their ammo is. They have no choice but to go back. Tossing a smoke grenade for cover, they head outside. Drasa retrieves the bag, but out of the haze, a long root lashes out, grabbing her leg and dragging her away at high speed. It whips past Levi. Some root rider on horseback has seized the woman, carrying her off into the darkness. She tries to cut the root away, but she's slammed into something and loses consciousness. Levi goes after her and soon finds a ruined missile silo. Drasa comes to her senses to find herself hung up in a room with a hollow man peering at her, evidently deciding where to start eating. She manages to free herself and fight back, but the monster is very strong. Drasa sets it on fire with a log from the fire, but it nearly overpowers her. Then Levi appears, saving her. He examines the hollow man and realizes it's the remains of one of his predecessors, the very officer who had named the creatures Hollow Men. They leave and soon discover damaged rockets and a crowd of mutated humans, their fusion with plants turning the space into a web-like nightmare. Drasa and Levi pick their way past, but one plant human grabs Drasa and Levi struggles to free her. They flee, shooting at the living tendrils until Drasa fires a grenade, setting the half-plants ablaze so they can escape. Before long, they find a still functional jeep fitted with a powerful winch and drive it to the cliff face. While Drasa fights off Hollow Men, Levi uses the winch to fling the cable up top, and the vehicle starts pulling them upward. But the monsters won't quit. The entire way up, they have to fight Hollow Men, nearly falling into the abyss. When they're just a few meters from the top, Levi almost slips but manages to grab hold of the frame. He punctures the gas tank so fuel drenches the creatures still clinging to the rope. Levi ignites the fuel and the jeep plunges down, knocking the Hollow Men loose, while Levi and Drasa dangle off the cliff, then cut the rope. They manage to reach Drasa's tower. After taking a moment to compose themselves, they consider what to do next. If they're infected, there's only one choice: go back down, but they need to wait 5 days first to see if symptoms appear. Levi confesses that he was sent here because he has no one, so no one would look for him. But now everything has changed. Drasa suggests fleeing to France, but Levi believes they must destroy the gorge first. He crosses back over and radios his superiors, reporting that everything is normal. However, the Dark-like drones have detected activity from the Eastern Observer, so Bartholomew orders Levi's elimination. He has no idea she's watching him on a secret video feed and is fully informed of his journey below. She orders a helicopter to be prepared. The next morning, Levi and Drasa make their usual rounds when a helicopter appears. They hide in the forest, but drones find them. The two try to break out of the kill zone of the Gorge's missiles, but the drones open fire, wounding Levi. Drasa manages to shoot down the metal hunters. Finally, they exit the danger area, while Bartholomew sees the Buddha quote Levi has left on the wall and realizes it's time to flee. But Levi and Drasa open fire, triggering a chain reaction of explosions that expose the Gorge to spy satellites. Then the stray dog protocol kicks in. The helicopter takes off but is caught in the blast. Levi is also knocked into the river by the shockwave and disappears into the current. Drasa waits 6 days for him in a nearby cave, then leaves. Sometime later, she settles in France and finally opens his last letter, which contains the poem he wrote for her. She cries, remembering Liam. She begins working in a cafe, and one day she suddenly sees Liam at a table. Drasa holds back from running straight into his arms and simply asks why he's been gone so